Renault Conquest or Arkana, a crossover that has a now admittedly recognized but still somewhat unusual shape of a family car that sits higher than you'd expect. Despite this, it sports the familiar Renault front grille with LED headlights and various details that spice things up. For a bigger car, there's bigger alloys. The base model gets 17-inch ones, while the others get 18 inches. Fortunately, Renault didn't go too crazy with something like 20-inch alloys, which appears to be more and more common. Even though there's reasonable trunk space, the rear passengers shouldn't complain about leg space. In the front, you'll immediately spot the digital instruments, which can be bought for an extra 150 euros with the higher equipment levels. Alright, time to find out how this Renault Conquest, this larger crossover, is inside and how it is to drive. Well, when you sit in it, it doesn't feel like anything particularly special, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't mind how the dashboard looks. They didn't go overboard with the piano black plastics, which is excellent. I really hate when they do that because it looks so good at a dealership, but as soon as you drive the car away, it's full of fingerprints and dust and dirt. It's horrible. So that's a good thing. Although I do have to say that the seats are reasonably comfortable. The car is quite alright to drive, and I especially like this digital instrument cluster. I think it really it does justice to the car, and it just looks good. So speaking of digital instrument clusters and friendly usability and such, I do have to say I'm very, very happy that Renault has gone back to pretty much using the mechanical climate controls. Sorry about the sun there. That's why I had my squinto vision on before, and now you'll have to have it. Darn it. Anyway, yeah, it's really nice because you don't have to look down always to see what you're doing with the climate. You don't have to press a special button to bring it up on the infotainment screen and then fiddle around with that. It's just horrible. This is much better. Although I do have to say I would wish that Renault would be using some more defined mechanical clicky thingies, rotating buttons for these climate controls, because, well, I figured out that while you can set the fan controls and maybe the temperature just fine without looking down, it's almost impossible to set where the air is going by not looking at the little screen, because there's so little feel in the rotating button. The infotainment screen, nothing new. We already know it from the other Renaults. It works, it's fine. I would like it to be more incorporated into the actual dashboard instead of, just sort of sprouting out of the dashboard, but that's my preference. I like the steering wheel. It's pretty nice. It's ever so slightly soft, which is kind of nice. And you've got all these buttons on the steering wheel as well, which work. They're a little bit stiff, maybe. I don't know. This one, for changing the menu on the actual instruments, the up one doesn't quite work unless you really jam on it. I'm not sure what's going on with that. But otherwise, yeah, you've got all the controls over here for cruise control and your media controls. It works, it's fine. And like I said, I really like the fact that it has physical climate controls, and this instrument cluster, like I said before, is really excellent because it's got very nice graphics. It looks good. You can customize it to a certain extent, and it's just a nice thing to have. It's not just a gimmick that you can have. It's really nice to have, I would say. What about the engine then, you say, or you ask? Well, this has the 1.3 liter four-cylinder engine that we've already tested in quite a few cars, including Dacias as well. They come in various power levels from, I think, 110 to 160 horsepower, I believe. I might be wrong on that. This one has, I believe, 140 horsepower, which is sort of in the middle-ish. And it's also got the dual clutch transmission. So I thought to myself, oh yeah, that's going to be pretty good. That 1.3 is a pretty nice little engine, and you've got the double clutch transmission. But I'm not so sure. You're being blinded by the sun again. Let me do this. I'm not so sure about this double clutch transmission. When you're driving and when you're actually going, it is fine. It can be a little bit lazy when you want speed. For example, I'm going about 42 right now, and if I press my foot down, it took a good almost 2 seconds before something happens. It's a little bit lazy, I would say. And of course, then when you're going, especially on the highway, the 140 horsepower for a car like this, I don't know, it doesn't feel all that powerful. But it really is the dual clutch transmission that sort of falls apart in a city environment where, again, it is fine, but when you have a lot of start-stop traffic, the problem is you come to a stop like this. The engine shuts off, of course, because it has the start-stop system. You take your foot off because I have the automatic parking brake. So as soon as I press, the car is in front of me go, I press the gas pedal. Watch this, I'm pressing it now. It takes a good second or even more. Sometimes it feels more when you're actually in heavy traffic. So it has to turn on the engine, increase the RPMs, let go of the parking brake, and then put it into gear and go. And the problem is, because you get impatient, you press the gas pedal even more, and the car sort of judders, forward in an unpleasant fashion. I know this might be just a small complaint, but it is sort of noticeable when you start driving within a city and in heavy traffic more. Let's talk about the fuel consumption now. Because this is a slightly larger crossover, and the shape, I'm assuming, is not that aerodynamic as it could be with a smaller car, and it's got only 1.3 liters of volume in the engine, it's not going to be as economical as you'd hope. And indeed, I don't think it is, because right now the average fuel consumption is 6.7 liters per 100 kilometers. Now this is, to be fair, mostly highway driving at 130 and some city driving. So this fuel consumption can go down if you take it out of the cities and just drive on regular roads. But on the highways, as a general rule, if you're driving normally at the speed limit, I find that your fuel consumption will hover at around 6.5 to 7 liters per 100 kilometers. Thank you for the blinker, sir. So not quite as economical as one would hope. My colleague thinks that 6.8 is a very good result for a car like this on the highway. I'm not so sure about that, but I might be biased because, well, I drive a lot of diesels, especially my diesel, which, after cleaning the EGR and everything, it's gone down to 4.1 liters per 100 kilometers. Anyway, yeah, that's the fuel consumption. But the most important thing, as per usual on my channel, is I'm not going to plaster you and bombard you with a plethora of numbers and this and that, and it's got this many centimeters at the front, and it's got this many liters in the trunk, and blah blah blah. No, I'm going to tell you one of the most important things that I feel with every car, and that is personal opinion about how it feels to be inside it and how it feels to drive. And like I said before already, the seats are reasonably comfortable. Sometimes I sit in the car and I say, wow, this is so comfortable. Or sometimes I sit in the car and I drive for half an hour and I'm like, I don't like these seats, I want to get out. I'm not really into either way with this car. It's perfectly reasonable and comfortable, so it's fine. I really like the steering wheel. I don't even mind the dual clutch transmission as long as you don't do a lot of city driving, and even then you'd sort of grow accustomed to it. I really love the instrument cluster. I don't mind the infotainment screen. I like the fact that there's mechanical climate controls. There's reasonable space in the trunk back there. There's reasonable space for the passengers in the back. The power of the engine is reasonable as well. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It's not a whole lot, but it doesn't feel entirely, out of breath. It is a little thirsty, I do have to say. I was expecting a little bit less, maybe, but this is what we're going for. We're sort of transitioning to gas engines again, and then to electric, or well, hybrids and then electric, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, otherwise, a rather completely pleasant car.
Now that you've probably had your eyes burnt out, close and rest them so I can tell you about the price. The base starts at 24,000 euros, while the top-of-the-line one with this 140 horsepower engine and practically all the extras will come up to 31,000 euros.